Hi, welcome to UML session. In this session, we are going to discuss about various model diagrams which helps us to visualize and analyze the complete model of a system we are going to develop or somebody will develop. Now, first diagram which we are going to discuss is called use case diagram. Use case diagram is pretty straightforward. Basically, what it means is that when the system will be ready, how the user is going to interact with the system. Those scenarios we have to capture now itself so that we can build the correct system. So it is called seeing in the future and visualizing and getting a picture that how the people will interact with your end system. If it is a website, whether there will be a login page, whether people will log out, what kind of a interactive mechanism it will be used, whether people will use the writing stylus pen, keyboard, touch screen. The use case scenarios are almost large number of them. Now, which language people will enter the data, how the system will work, how the user will what kind of a output that system will give that the user will expect. So all of these are called user interaction and user scenarios. So what in the use case diagram we do is that we capture the system functionality as seen by users, okay, as seen by users, and this is done by a set of user scenarios. Now it is built in early stages of development. So in the very beginning of the development life cycle, software development life cycle, basically when you are going to start developing the software, in the very early stage of your design and analysis, you should have the use case diagram ready. And as it says that it works like a contract between end user and software developers. Works like a contract between end user and software developers. Okay. What is the purpose? Purpose is very simple. Specify the context of a system, capture the requirements of a system, because it also, see, the more you analyze the use case scenario, more you would understand that what exactly this system need to do. What are the features I need to put inside the system? So basically, more and more use case diagram analysis will help you to clarify the requirements of the system, because it will also force you to think from the user's angle that what user is expecting, how user is going to interact with the system, when the user will need a help from the system, what kind of a hint or guidance it will need. All of those requirements will become clear and clear once you start analyzing and developing a use case diagram. So that is very important. Now, next one is obviously it is to validate a system's architecture. What does it mean by validating a system's architecture? When you will analyze the user requirement, you can also think about whether the architecture of the system is going to support that use case or not. So that is called a validation of systems architecture. Drive implementation and generate test cases. Now use case diagram does one very important thing, and that very important thing is generating a test cases. What it means is that once you have the use case diagram ready, you can generate the test cases which will be used to test and check and validate the system once it is ready. And that is the another important part of the use case diagram, generating a test cases, because unless you have a valid test cases and complete coverage of the system's test cases, you may not be able to check whether the system you have developed is correct or wrong. So that's why we say that use case diagram is very helpful to generate test cases. Who develops this use case diagram? Most of the time it is developed by analysts and domain experts. Very important thing I would like to mention here, that use case diagrams are not developed by the developer. Use case diagrams are not developed by the testing or QA engineer. Use case diagram is not developed by architect and technical lead. Then who develops the use case diagram? Use case diagrams are developed by analysts and domain experts. Who develops this? Analysts and domain experts. So use case diagrams always and must be developed only by analysts and domain experts. So that is a very good idea and good conceptual understanding you should have, that what is exactly a use case diagram. Now let us see some example. Okay. Here one example is that I am developing a cellular telephone. So this is the system I am developing. Okay. So this is my system. I am developing this system. This is a cellular telephone. Now what are the various use cases? First use cases is that user will place a phone call, okay, and then once the user will place this phone call, this is one use case, and it will go to the cellular network, and from cellular network it will go to somewhere else, other user. Now from other user, another use case is that it will receive a use case, receive a phone call, and that is called receiving phone call. Another use case will be using a scheduler to place a conference call or receive a call. So another thing is that use scheduler. Now use scheduler will receive the additional call, and here there is a place conference call. So you can place a regular phone call or you can place a conference call. Now this extend this, what it means is that placing a phone call, this is a generalization relationship which uses the concept called extends. What kind of relationship is? Generalization. Okay, generalization to specialization, and that is where the inheritance comes, extend relationship comes, dot 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 arrow comes, and this arrow comes. So this is called generalization relationship. What it means is that placing a conference call is a very special case of a general case called placing a phone call. So this is a general case, this is a specific case, and this is the relationship called extend relationship, also known as generalization relationship in between these two components. Same thing is that receiving a phone call, receiving additional call. So this extends this. This is a specific case, this is a general case. Now using a scheduler or receiving a phone call, both are a use case, and this is called system boundary. Now in this structure, if you think, there are three components. One is actor, other is action, use cases, and this is boundary of the system. So this is what is a simple example of use case diagram, that a user will place phone call, user will receive phone call, user will make conference call, user will receive additional service call. All are these the use case diagram of the system which we are going to design, called cellular telephone. How do you break this whole use case diagram in a scientific and structured way? Always think about use case diagram has three different components. One is called actor, other is called use case, and third is called system boundary. Now, what is the role of this? Actors is very simple. A role that a user plays with respect to the system. User plays with respect to the system, including human users and other system, inanimate physical object, for example report, an external system that needs some information from the current system. So, either a standard user with respect to the system, or it could be an external system. Both will be, we can call that actor. So, either it will be external system or a user. Both can be considered as a actor. What is the use case? It is a set of scenarios that describing an interaction between a user and a system. So, what it means is that a set of scenarios that describe an interaction between a user and a system, including alternatives. So, here is a actor, here is a use case. Now, system boundary. System boundary is a rectangle diagram representing the boundary between the actors and the system. Okay? So, in the previous case we saw the boundary of a cellular system. Now, let us understand those actor, boundary and use cases with some example. Now, here is our actor, client, and this is the boundary. Okay? This is our boundary. And what are the use cases? These are the use cases: borrow, order title, find remittance. So, what is happening is a very simple. There is a library system. If you see here, there is a library system. Inside this library system we are developing, there is a client, and then there is an employee of the library and the supervisor of the library. Okay? So, now client will come and borrow a book from an employee, or if book is there not there, then employee will order that book, order title to a supervisor, and then supervisor will give that book to employee, employee will give the book to client. That is one use case. Other use cases, so other use case, client will go and borrow a book from employee, but employee will say that you have not written the book, so he will go and request a fine remittance. Fine remittance goes to the supervisor, and supervisor comes back and put a fine on the client. So, that is another use case. So, either he can borrow the book, or he can, if the book he has, he will give him. If not, then he will order the title, supervisor will order the book, and then the book will come, or it will find the remittances. So, this is a typical use case of a library system. What kind of a relationship we will have? A generalized description of how a system will be used provides an overview of the intended functionality of the system. So, this is use case, one of the use case, library system. Now, what are the relationship in the use case diagram we use? Generally, we use a simple association, which is both way relationship between actor and use case, represented by a solid line. So, here it is very simple. Our relationship is association, represented by a solid line without any arrow. Now another relationship in use case diagram which we use is called generalization, and we have seen the generalization is basically general to specialization case, uses the concept of inheritance, and those are the two important things about generalization relationship. In use case diagram we use the generalization relationship, a relationship between one general use case and a special use case. Okay, so one general use case and one is, so special use case becomes the subclass of the general use case. So it uses the concept of inheritance, and depending on different language it can use a different construct or syntax called extend or anything else. It is represented by a line with a triangular arrow head towards the parent use case. So what is here? In the parent use case, this side is parent, this side is child. Okay, so this is the relationship we have. So let me just repeat this relationship which is used in the use case diagram. It is called association, which is a communication between an actor and a use case represented by a solid line. Generalization is a relationship between one general use case and a special use case. It is used for defining special alternatives. It is represented by a line with a triangular arrow, and the head will be towards the parent use case. Now another relationship which is very important in the use case diagram is include. And the other one is called extend. Include a dotted line level beginning at base use case and ending with an arrow pointing to the include use case. The include relationship occurs when a chunk of behavior is similar across more than one use cases. Use include instead of copying the description of that behavior. Okay, so this is what the concept of include is all about. The include relationship occurs when a chunk of behavior is similar across more than one use cases. Then we use the include relationship. What is the extend relationship? A dotted line level extend with an arrow towards the base case. The extending use case may add behavior to the base use case, and it is done with like this. Okay, so these are the two other core relationships which is used while developing a use case diagram. Let us see another example of a use case diagram. What happens is that here patient cancels the appointment to a clinic, that is one use case. He makes the appointment, that is another use case. This is one use case. This is makes an appointment, another use case. And when this use case happens, what it does is that it by default include another use case called check patient record, and this get triggered every time the make appointment use case happen. Okay. Now when make appointment happens, it goes to the scheduler only, and scheduler will then schedule the appointment. Now it also includes a use case called check patient record. Once that is done, then scheduler will take care from there. Now patient requests a medication. He directly request to the doctor. Doctor will go back to him and ask him, can you check the patient record if it is correct or not? If the correct, then he will give the medicine to the patient. We can also defer the payment. That is another relationship by extend called pay bill, extension points and more treatment. This is a generalization to specialization. Bill insurance from this one. So pay bill is a parent use case and bill insurance is the child use case. Pay bill is the parent use case and bill insurance is the child use case. Both make appointment and request medication, including check patient record as a subtask. The extension point is written inside the base case. So pay bill is a parent use case and bill insurance is the child use case, generalization. Both make appointment and request medication, include check patient record as a subtask. So in this case, what are the various use cases? One is pay bill, bill insurance, make appointment, request medication, check patient record, extension point. So these are the various use cases based on which somebody can create a use case diagram.